Discover how a single mom janitor amazingly transformed the lives of billionaire twins in 30 days. Mabel crouched low, her mop sliding over the slick cafe floor like an uninvited guest at a party. The rhythmic swish of the mop did little to ease the knot in her stomach. Her 2 children, sleeping back at their cramped apartment, depended on her, like a fragile house of cards that could topple at any moment if she faltered. Money was running thin this month. She could feel the weight of unpaid bills pressing on her chest. And the late-night study sessions didn't help. Exhaustion clung to her like an old coat. Each night, she struggled to balance the visions of a better future for her children with the reality of scrubbing floors in a busy university cafe. It wasn't the life she dreamed of, yet it was the only life she knew, the stubborn rhythm of survival. Before she could dwell too much on her worries, chaos erupted. A sudden splash startled her from her thoughts as steaming coffee cascaded to the floor, splattering over glossy loafers that belonged to 2 men in crisp suits. She froze, staring at the billionaire twins, Alex and Ryan. "I'm so sorry," she exclaimed, an involuntary grin creeping across her face despite the sinking feeling brewing in her gut. Her heart raced, not out of fear of the repercussions, but from the sheer irony of the moment. Here she was, a janitor with little to her name, mopping the floors of the place where these men, with their perfectly manicured lives, were stirring with fortune and privilege. It felt surreal, a cruel twist of fate. To her utter disbelief, as anger flickered in their eyes, there was intrigue as well. The twins exchanged glances, the tension hanging in the air, before they continued with their musings about the future they were born into. "We'd hire you for cleaning in our office," Alex blurted out before Ryan could reply, a playful circle of fate igniting between them. The last thing she expected was an offer from 2 men whose lives seemed galaxies away from hers. Yet she found herself swept up in this unpredictable whirlwind. During luxurious lunches at their office, laughter joined a sharing of stories that painted Mabel's struggles in stark contrast to the twins' privileged existence. With every interaction, Mabel revealed the biting reality of life as a single mom. Her dreams intertwined with laundry and scraped knees, hopes hanging on the slimmest of margins. Each story peeled back layers of their sheltered world, revealing the fear they carried of inheriting a legacy that felt more like a prison than a privilege. "What would you do without the money?" she had asked once, her eyes searching theirs with genuine curiosity. That moment shimmered, locking them into a tapestry of newfound purpose and uncertainty. Would they heed her advice, forged from exhaustion and love? Or would the pressure of their family's expectations eclipse the insights she fought hard to instill? All her hard work hung in the balance like glass fragments ready to shatter. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. With the announcement looming, Mabel was thrown into the arena of high stakes. As sweat trickled down her back, stepping into an emergency meeting with the twins and their father felt like a precarious tightrope walk. She clenched her jaw to steady the surge of anxiety. All her dreams, sweat, and labor, crystallizing into this one pivotal moment, threatened to implode under expectations. Would they choose to redefine their legacy and pursue the passion she cherished? Would they remind themselves of the heart and struggle behind success? Their expressions, fear mingled with determination, met hers, setting the stage for a collision of worlds. The air thickened as decisions loomed, dark clouds ready to unleash everything Mabel had fought so hard to nurture. Mabel took a deep breath, her heart pounding against the confines of her chest. The boardroom felt cavernous, its sleek design contrasting starkly with the life she had lived. Cold glass and polished wood encapsulated a world that felt foreign. Chair cushions barely creaked under the twins' shifting weight, yet Mabel could feel the tension in the air, electric and oppressive. Today, she wasn't just a janitor, she was an instigator of potential change, a voice bridging their disparate realities. "Thank you for coming at such short notice," Alex started, nervously fidgeting with his cufflinks. "We needed to discuss what we've been thinking." Mabel steadied her gaze, locking it on his face. Here we go, she thought, a wild mix of apprehension and determination swirling within her. "Your insight has really made us reconsider what success means," Ryan chimed in, his voice notably steadier. "We were on a clear path to take over the family business, but, well, it felt hollow. We've been talking about making a shift," he continued, glancing at Alex. "We want to focus on something meaningful, something that actually helps people." Her breath caught in her throat, the weight of their admission heavy with promise. This declaration was a seed sprouting amidst their tangled past, a confrontation with the stagnant legacy they inherited. Would they choose to redefine their legacy and pursue the passion she cherished? Would they remind themselves of the heart and struggle behind success? Their expressions, fear mingled with determination, met hers, setting the stage for a collision of worlds. The air thickened as decisions loomed, dark clouds ready to unleash everything Mabel had fought so hard to nurture. Mabel took a deep breath, her heart pounding against the confines of her chest. The boardroom felt cavernous, its sleek design contrasting starkly with the life she had lived. Cold glass and polished wood encapsulated a world that felt foreign. Chair cushions barely creaked under the twins' shifting weight, yet Mabel could feel the tension in the air, electric and oppressive. Today, she wasn't just a janitor, she was an instigator of potential change, a voice bridging their disparate realities. "Thank you for coming at such short notice," Alex started, nervously fidgeting with his cufflinks. "We needed to discuss what we've been thinking." Mabel steadied her gaze, locking it on his face. Here we go, a wild mix of apprehension and determination swirling within her. "Your insight has really made us reconsider what success means," Ryan chimed in, his voice notably steadier. "We were on a clear path to take over the family business, but, well, it felt hollow. We've been talking about making a shift," he continued, glancing at Alex. "We want to focus on something meaningful, something that actually helps people." Her breath caught in her throat, the weight of their admission heavy with promise. This declaration was a seed sprouting amidst their tangled past, a confrontation with the stagnant legacy they inherited. Still, she sensed the hesitation lingering beneath their words, the fear of diverging from a predetermined trajectory. "What do you believe will make a difference?" Mabel asked, her voice calm despite the storm brewing inside her. She was no longer just reacting. She was engaging, challenging them to confront the void they felt. "That's the thing," Alex replied, visibly wrestling with his thoughts. "We need to find our passion, to understand what we truly care about." Their sincerity struck her, a reminder of how entwined ambition and identity could be. Yet she wondered, were they ready to take that final step into the unknown? A flicker of inspiration surged within her. "Let's create something," she proposed, her words punctuated with an unexpected confidence. "Why not start an initiative that addresses issues faced by single parents? It could be a safe space with resources to help with job training and emotional support." The idea flowed from her, fearless and vivid, yet it felt monumental for them and for herself. Would they embrace it, or would they turn away? Silence enveloped the room, and Mabel could almost hear the ticking clock marking time slipping away. The twins exchanged glances, eyes wide with a mix of excitement and dread. "That's ambitious," Alex finally breathed, the wheels of their minds visibly turning. "Maybe it is," Mabel urged, conviction coating her words. She thought of late-night cram sessions, of reading to her kids by the flickering glow of a lamp, of sleepless nights weaving dreams together from the frayed edges of her reality. But powerful things start small. The question is, how far are you willing to go? Determination sparked in their eyes, but there was still trepidation, a shadow dancing across their faces. Ryan nodded slowly, contemplating, as Mabel leaned closer. "Change is terrifying," she said softly, "but that is where our true potential lies." Their expression softened, the rawness of their fears uniting them in this pivotal moment. Just as she felt the tide of commitment shift, a sharp ding echoed through the silence, like a thief in the night. A notification on Ryan's phone, illuminating the long shadows of expectation. Mabel's heart sank as she watched him reach for the device, his face draining of color. Everything she had built in this fleeting, powerful exchange hung in precarious balance. "I have to take this," he said, his voice shifting from committed to conflicted in the blink of an eye. As he retreated to take the call, Mabel's stomach tightened with dread. Had she lost them? Would the chaos of their world pull them back from the edge of something extraordinary? In that moment, she realized transformation would not just lie in their actions. It would require a fierce yearning to strip away the layers of familial obligations and confront their truth. The resolve simmered within her, like a flame desperate to ignite. She inhaled deeply, steeling herself as she waited. This was no longer just a discussion of business for them. It was a confrontation with their core identities and future. And she would fight for this chance, consequences be damned. As she listened to distant murmurs on the phone, Mabel felt her own pulse quicken, a determination radiating through her veins. The twins might be on the brink of discovery, but she was not backing down. Whatever the outcome of Ryan's call, one thing was certain. Their destinies were now intertwined in a way that would demand choice, courage, and, above all, heart. What would happen if they chose to follow her idea? What if their family legacy was redefined under the weight of their own truths? And as the door clicked shut behind Ryan, Mabel felt the tension of the unfolding narrative pulse strongly within her. Would this moment be one of liberation or despair for all three of them? One thing was clear. She would face whatever came next with eyes wide open and a heart resolute. Mabel's mind raced as she watched Ryan vanish behind the boardroom door, the heavy frame closing with an echo that amplified her doubts. What if he took too long? What if he returned, shaking his head, filled with the weight of their family's expectations? This small room, once a venue for corporate machinations, had become a crucible for everything she longed to ignite. The twins had flickered with excitement, but she sensed a sea of fear still churned beneath their resolve. They were on the precipice of something extraordinary, yet the inevitability of their upbringing loomed like a storm cloud. A legacy of power and wealth symbolizing suffocating pressures. Mabel felt the urgency building inside her, a need to penetrate their fears and make them see the promise that lay ahead. As she absently traced her fingers along the glossy tabletop, her thoughts drifted to her own children. They were not just the driving force behind her aspirations, they were a mirror reflecting every challenge she faced. The moments she spent with them were filled with laughter, love, and the relentless push of making a better life. Her silence was not just an absence of sound. It was a repository of strength, steeped in the courage to fight for a chance at something significant. Then realization struck. This urgency wasn't a mere anxiety. It was an unyielding call to action. As the seconds ticked away, she began to strategize, mapping out what she would do if they hesitated. She envisioned herself transforming from a janitor to a relentless advocate, someone who would not just join the conversation, but lead it. The fear of rejection transformed into a righteous fury, like a spellbinding current compelling her to push forth. When Ryan returned, Mabel straightened in her chair, ready to confront whatever came next. The door swung open, and Ryan stepped back inside, his expression a fragile blend of trepidation and determination. The atmosphere thickened the moment he looked at her, the air infused with expectancy.
Mabel braced her para queipem autoritaria.
Our name is recognized. Using it can serve a dual purpose. Mabel felt a thrill. This was the first time she had witnessed them stepping outside their inherited roles, engaging in something that could change not just their lives, but potentially countless others. Yet, as a realist, she feared the murky waters ahead. But what if the board rejects us? They might see this initiative as too radical, too far from our brand. Then we adapt, Ryan replied, his gaze steady. We emphasize the potential for community engagement and the positive PR that could come with it. A sense of cohesion was building among them, the wall of expectations cracking. Mabel felt a surge of hope, a feeling both exhilarating and terrifying. This alliance felt fragile, like intricate glasswork, ready to shatter at any provocation. Could they truly blend their contrasting worlds into something impactful? Focus on the impact stories, Mabel suggested, surprising even herself. As words formed, they unfurled an unexpected stream of recollections. The mothers she had met at local food banks, the children her heart ached for, the lives overshadowed by the weight of economic disparity. What if her first-hand experiences grounded their proposals? Real people, real needs. This isn't just corporate talk. This is about paving pathways for families to thrive. Silence enveloped the room as Mabel's words settled. Then Alex's eyes widened. That's it. Testimonials, maybe even video snippets. We could show the human side of what we're trying to do.
Visual storytelling, Ryan affirmed. It's powerful. As the atmosphere shifted from uncertainty to inspiration, Mabel latched on to the burgeoning vision, a clarity igniting fire in her veins. This was her purpose. It was more than just a project. It was a movement grounded in the aspirations she had nurtured amid her struggles as a single mother. But a new worry crept into her mind. What if this became the ultimate test of her resolve? Could she face the potential backlash if they failed? The trio began mapping their strategy, words punctuated by fervor as they outlined what felt like a manifesto of sorts, a commitment to change, both for themselves and the communities they aspired to uplift. Yet even as camaraderie flourished, Mabel felt a distant unease, like a storm brewing beyond the horizon. As hours faded into a blur, the thrill of creation was tempered with grueling reality. Each revelation was a stepping stone, yet a nagging thought gripped her. What if they stumbled before they reached their destination? Mabel resisted the weight of despair. She would not allow fear to tether her. Let's schedule follow-up meetings and present a rough draft by next week. It's now or never. They nodded, the sense of urgency heightened. With a newfound resolve coursing through her veins, Mabel gathered her thoughts. She was no longer just a janitor advocating for change. She was an integral part of a mission.
The room felt closed off, the air electric with a palpable tension. Ryan and Alex sat across from her, their expressions a mix of curiosity and concern. The board announcement loomed, and in that moment Mabel understood that this was not just about a presentation. It was a test of her belief in herself and her vision. "Okay, let's talk," Ryan said, breaking the silence. Mabel cleared her throat, her voice steadying as she engaged the twins in a dialogue. She started with a personal anecdote, recalling a winter evening when a family she had assisted struggled to provide for their children's needs. "These kids, bright, full of dreams, are losing hope. We are standing at a precipice. If we decide to help them, we not only change their lives, but redefine success in our corporate culture." As she spoke, she saw Alex shift in his seat, leaning forward with interest. The initial hesitation in his eyes faded, replaced by an openness that surged hope within her. Mabel pressed on, weaving her tale with data and insights that underscored their potential impact. The duality of her role felt harmonized in that moment, merging her lived reality with corporate ambition. But just as clarity began to blossom, Mabel felt a familiar unease trickle back. What if the board maintained their conventional approach? What if her honesty was met with dismissal rather than validation? She bit her lip, suppressing the chilling thoughts that clawed at her resolve. "Do you think they'll see this as reaching too far?" she finally asked, looking directly at Ryan and Alex. Their expressions shifted, and Mabel sensed the weight of their consideration. "It's what we need, Mabel," Alex replied, a sudden fierceness in his tone. "We have to expand the narrative. It's time for us to be vulnerable if we want to connect with people genuinely." That simple declaration ignited a spark deep within her. Just as she had played a part in forging the proposal, Alex and Ryan were joining her in this vulnerability. They were not merely partners, they were allies ready to support her in challenging the status quo. The fear that had threatened to dismantle her mission lifted, urging her to step deeper into her truth. Mabel's passion began to overflow, her ideas cascading like a waterfall.
We have the chance to dismantle barriers and build connections. Stories of strength instead of statistics. Let's showcase the resilience of those who have been overlooked. We'll invite board members to hear personal testimonies, creating a bridge between data and humanity. As she spoke, the room charged with anticipation. Mabel could sense a shift not only in her own energy, but in the twins as well. They were awakening to the realization of how significant this proposal could be, not just for funding, but as a cultural cornerstone within the company. But then, as quickly as that exhilaration rose, Mabel felt a sharp pang of doubt return. As the meeting progressed, she noticed Alex glancing at his phone, the concern creeping back into his expression. The impending announcement from the board lingered like a storm cloud, threatening to downpour on their hopeful initiative. "Is there still a chance they might reject it?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. Despite the headway they had made, the specter loomed large in her mind, sowing seeds of worry. "It's possible," Ryan acknowledged, his tone shifting to one of sober realism. "But we won't know until we present. And if they do, we need to regroup and rethink our strategy. No matter what, we will persevere." Mabel felt the gravity of his words settle deep within her. She had chosen to be here, to offer her voice. No board decision could erase the power of that truth. With renewed clarity, Mabel committed herself to the journey ahead. She understood the stakes had never been higher, yet neither had her determination. As they began to discuss presentation strategies, laying out how to intertwine personal stories with empirical data, she realized the depth of their mission. It was not only about funding lives, but about reimagining the landscape of their organization. And through it all, Mabel felt the adrenaline pulse anew. They'd stand together against any resistance. But would her past and hidden vulnerabilities continue to haunt her as they breached the boardroom doors? Mabel knew one thing for certain. The time was drawing near to confront not only the board, but the echoes of her past that threatened to define her future. The moment of truth was approaching, and she stole a glance around the table, wondering, could she embrace the fight ahead with everything she had? The following days unfolded like a series of intentional preparations, each one steeped in the gravity of what was to come. Mabel became a whirlwind of focus, diving deep into her research and refining the nuances of their presentation. She found herself awakening each morning, buoyed by purpose, gravitating toward a relentless optimism. It was exasperating, yet invigorating. Her internal clock seemed to align with the urgency of the impending board meeting. Every evening after work, she spent hours combing through case studies, searching for the compelling stories that would paint a vivid picture for the board. The more she immersed herself in the narratives of families rebounding against despair, the clearer her vision became. She wasn't just advocating for funding, she was drafting a manifesto for genuine connection, proof that real change was possible. During this period of intense focus, Mabel noticed her inherent skills evolving. The meticulous attention to detail that she garnered from years of personal and professional challenges morphed into a superpower. She could perceive connections between disparate pieces of data and stitch them into cohesive narratives. And through it all, Mabel felt the adrenaline pulse anew. They'd stand together against any resistance. But would her past and hidden vulnerabilities continue to haunt her as they breached the boardroom doors? Mabel knew one thing for certain. The time was drawing near to confront not only the board, but the echoes of her past that threatened to define her future. The moment of truth was approaching, and she stole a glance around the table, wondering, could she embrace the fight ahead with everything she had? The following days unfolded like a series of intentional preparations, each one steeped in the gravity of what was to come. Mabel became a whirlwind of focus, diving deep into her research and refining the nuances of their presentation. She found herself awakening each morning, buoyed by purpose, gravitating toward a relentless optimism. It was exasperating, yet invigorating. Her internal clock seemed to align with the urgency of the impending board meeting. Every evening after work, she spent hours combing through case studies, searching for the compelling stories that would paint a vivid picture for the board. The more she immersed herself in the narratives of families rebounding against despair, the clearer her vision became. She wasn't just advocating for funding, she was drafting a manifesto for genuine connection. Proof that real change was possible. During this period of intense focus, Mabel noticed her inherent skills evolving. The meticulous attention to detail that she garnered from years of personal and professional challenges morphed into a superpower. She could perceive connections between disparate pieces of data and stitch them into cohesive narratives.
In the quiet of her apartment, with stacks of papers scattered around her, she discovered an unexpected talent for storytelling, not just reciting dry facts, but genuinely engaging her audience with the emotional weight behind the figures. As the presentation day approached, she became adept at harnessing her emotions. The early specters of doubt, the painful memories that had shadowed her desire to step into the spotlight, began to wane. Instead, she turned them into a source of strength. The vulnerability she initially feared now served as a wellspring of authenticity. Mabel no longer saw herself as an imposter. She began to recognize her own resilience as an asset, a testament to her capacity for empathy and connection. Yet, as she prepped, a nagging sense of unease crept in. The closer they drew to the meeting, the harsher the whispers of self-doubt became. What if her preparation wasn't enough? What if her voice faltered mid-pitch, leaving her exposed in front of the board, the very faces whose approval she so desperately sought? It was a mental cliff she had to scale with trembling hands. Past the daytime hours, intimate discussions with Alex and Ryan reinforced her resolve. These conversations were no longer merely strategy sessions. They had transformed into mutual exchanges of faith. They articulated their own vulnerabilities, allowing her to mirror their bravery in seeking meaningful change. In that newfound camaraderie, Mabel grappled with the realization that their initiative was bigger than herself. As she rehearsed her delivery one last time, pacing in front of her mirror, she recognized her reflection, the poised woman she had become. The intensity of her heartbeat matched the swells of determination lining her chest. She summoned the energy from the families she aimed to uplift, allowing their stories to meld within her. She also seized upon the twins' unwavering belief in her ideas, fanning a flame of fierce commitment. On the eve of the presentation, however, the landscape of her resolve cracked. After a full day of rehearsals, her phone buzzed with an urgent message from her ex-husband, tinged with tension and demand.
"I need to talk. You need to prioritize Sam this week." The innocent mention of their daughter felt like a shadow looming over her hopeful path. Mabel's heart plunged to the floor. How could she juggle the weight of her professional aspirations with the expectations of motherhood that seemed to spring forth at the most critical moments? For the first time in weeks, her mind spiraled into uncertainty. Was she doing this for them, or simply for herself? The dichotomy of her life became too palpable to ignore. Could she balance the impending pressures from the board with her responsibilities as a mother? The fight for their proposal now came at the cost of a personal battle. The moment had arrived to confront the nagging question: was her commitment to this cause worth sacrificing the already precarious equilibrium of her family life? As Mabel stood frozen, a fresh wave of determination surged through her veins. She needed to clarify her priorities, and she wouldn't allow any fear to shackle her voice. The burden of the board announcement paled in comparison to her desire to effect genuine change, not only for others, but for her daughter and herself. The meeting loomed ever closer, and with it the realization settled in. She was ready to fight, not just for her proposal, but for her right to flourish. Would she take the leap into a future that embraced her multifaceted identity? In that moment, Mabel steadied herself, thoughts racing. Tomorrow would be more than just a presentation. It would be the reckoning of her journey. And as she gathered her thoughts, she realized the struggle didn't just lie within the boardroom. It lay in every choice she would make from now on. The moment to face her complexities was at hand. Would she embrace the intricacies of her life, or would she lose herself in the simple pursuit of success? The stakes had never been higher. Morning light filtered through the blinds, casting stripes of gold across Mabel's cluttered desk. She had hardly slept, the persistent hum of worry gnawing at her resolve. Today wasn't just about the proposal, it was an emotional battlefield. The shadows of doubt intertwined with her ambitions, creating a thrum of anxiety deep in her core. Mabel took a moment, inhaling deeply, consciously leading herself back to that serene place of determination. Her daughter needed her, and perhaps this was just as much for Sam as it was for her. Mabel focused on the stories she had gathered, each a testament to resilience, just like her own. Focusing on Sam's bright smile spurred a warmth that nipped at the edges of her fear. She reminded herself that this proposal was about more than funding. It was a bridge to better lives, a door cracked open for families yearning for hope. As she arrived at the office, a surge of adrenaline washed over her. The boardroom lay down the hall, looming like a mountain awaiting her ascent. Conversations with Alex and Ryan replayed in her head, echoing their encouraging words. But now the subtle pressure from her ex-husband lingered, casting long shadows over her determination. How could she juggle both roles effectively? Each responsibility felt like a weight pressing down on her, threatening to topple her hard-won equilibrium if she made one wrong move. Mabel steeled herself, lowering her chin defiantly as she walked into the boardroom. The room was stark and cold, filled with polished tables where stoic board members sat. Each face was a mask of expectation. Yet amidst the chill, something sparked within her. She felt a flicker of purpose. The voice of societal expectation whispered, but she was ready to drown it out. As their deliberations continued, the question lay heavy. Was this most significant fight to secure funding, or a deeper reflection of who she was? A chance to craft the narrative not just for those families, but for herself and Sam? The essence of her journey had transformed yet again. Would she emerge victorious, fully ready to balance her ambitions with her heart? As those thoughts wrapped around her, she felt the fire inside swell with an urgency to share her story, not just within boardroom walls, but beyond. The moment of truth approached, and the next decision loomed. Would she dare to step further into a life that embraced both her aspirations as a mother and her professional credibility? The boardroom discussion faded into a muffled buzz as Mabel stood at the precipice of uncertainty. She could feel the weight of anticipation pulling at her, warping time into a taut, drawn-out presence. Her mind raced, dissecting each argument, weighing the implications of every comment. She had shared her story. Now she needed to lay claim to her truth. As the debate among the board members meandered, Mabel found herself reflecting wildly. The question posed earlier lingered like a specter. What would this mean for Sam? The answer wasn't straightforward, yet clarity dawned. Mabel recalled countless nights spent hunched over her laptop, the glow of the screen silhouetting her tired figure, and Sam's laughter echoing through the house. Each moment of sacrifice was a testament to the future she envisioned for them. Mabel's heart beat louder now, a drum urging her to reclaim the narrative. They needed to hear her voice, more than ever, the authentic story of a mother committed to helping not just her child, but countless others. Confronting these board members wasn't merely an exercise in professional persuasion. It was a mission to affirm that seeking change was both brave and necessary. The tension twisted in her stomach as she chose her next words carefully. "I understand your concerns regarding personal impacts and priorities," she began, steeling herself. "But maybe it's time to redefine what it means to be successful as a mother and a professional. I'm pursuing something larger than myself. I want Sam to grow up in a world that values kindness and generosity, a world where barriers are broken down, not built higher. Supporting this proposal is a vote for that future." She observed heads nodding, cautious optimism flickering in the board members' expressions. In that moment, Mabel realized that her narrative wasn't just about her aspirations. It was about connection, vulnerability, and shared humanity. She had transformed fear into strength. Each word was a sculptor's chisel, carving out the mother she wanted to exemplify, not just to Sam, but to all those impacted by her efforts. As the board members continued their evaluation, a question burrowed into her thoughts. Could she impact more lives than she ever anticipated? The logistics of the proposal melded with a newfound sense of agency, igniting a surge of purpose. If she seized this opportunity, how many families could she support? How many futures could she help shape? The discussions resumed, intertwining metrics and potential outcomes, but Mabel found herself stepping outside of the immediate stakes. She envisioned endless possibilities, the faces of families brightening as they received aid, the quiet hours spent with Sam filled with pride as she shared her journey. Everything had a ripple effect. She could be the catalyst for change. Suddenly, her phone buzzed in her pocket, jolting her back to the present. It was a message from Alex, reiterating his support. His faith in her fueled her resolve. She imagined a future where Sam's laughter mingled with the joy of families uplifted by her efforts through the proposal. Mabel felt herself unwinding from the tether of anxiety. She was becoming more than a mere participant. She was a leader. Then, amidst the crowd, a familiar face turned. Ryan was looking directly at her, giving her a nod of encouragement. That small, human gesture extended her courage across the table, urging her to take a bold step forward. "Let me share my vision," Mabel proposed, and as she stood taller, a ripple of intrigue swept through the room. "This funding is not just financial support. It will create a fabric of hope. We can build programs that will instill skills, fortify families, and nurture communities. It means everything. It's not only a matter of funding, it's about creating a legacy." Her words hung in the air, charged with raw, unrefined passion. That moment felt monumental. Was she ready not just to convince the board, but to redefine her own roles? She understood the potential ramifications of such aspirations. It was a dangerous dance on the edge of ambition and responsibility, yet she felt emboldened, redefining her journey amid uncertainty. But as she spoke, a feeling of vulnerability fluttered within her. A small voice murmured that perhaps this was still just a part of the journey, and that obstacles could arise at any turn. The road didn't seem straight ahead, and somewhere in her heart, doubts lurked just outside the glow of her determination. Would the board embrace the unfolding of this future? She wondered internally, aware that the outcome could spiral away from her grasp. Confidence and fear waged war in her core, until a single question solidified itself with clarity and strength. Who was she becoming, really? Had she truly morphed from doubt-ridden to visionary? One thing was certain: Mabel yearned to discover the full captaincy of her life's ship. And in that space, she anticipated the crucial moment when decisions would tip the scales. Her journey was far from over.
As the discussion lingered, casting shadows and light, Mabel clenched her hands and prepared for the inevitable question that would come next. Would she reveal her most personal fear to ensure they understood why this mattered to her so deeply? Mabel stood at the threshold of her future, every word spoken in the boardroom resonating with the thrill of potential. The air thickened, filled with an enticing tension as the conversation circled her proposal, drawing everyone in. Then the moment arrived. Ryan spoke. "Mabel, you've given us something to consider, but tell us, deeper still, how does this really tie back to you personally?" The question landed like a spark, igniting kindling within her. Mabel inhaled deeply, her heart thundering, but this time she felt the cool hand of fear recede, replaced by an urgent need to speak her truth. "You need to understand that for me, this isn't just a presentation. I'm a single mother fighting for a better life for my daughter, Sam," she declared with newfound clarity. "I don't just want to help families. I want to pave a pathway for my own child, to ensure she grows up seeing that dreams are possible, regardless of how daunting life may seem." The board members leaned in, captivated by her authenticity. Each face reflected varying shades of concern and intrigue. Here was Mabel, once solely defined as a janitor, now casting off layers of fear and doubt, each word a step toward reclaiming her identity. She was transforming before their eyes, demonstrating that vulnerability could be a strength. "I remember the struggles we faced," she continued, the memories flowing seamlessly, her narrative threading through their collective conscious.
the uncertainty of making ends meet, the late nights studying, and the omnipresent fear of not being enough. I want to transform that fear into hope for others, to ensure every family I touch feel they can rise above their circumstances. There was a moment of silence, thick with acknowledgement. Mabel's honesty formed a bond, a shared understanding of struggle that each member of the board could recognize in their own way. Suddenly, the stakes had become not merely about funding, but about humanity and connection. She was not just advocating for an initiative, she was leading a movement grounded in lived experience. As a few board members whispered among themselves, her attention drifted to the reaction they had to her story. She sensed a shift, an understanding that impact was not just about profit margins, but about intertwining lives with purpose. Mabel felt herself soaring on the wings of newfound confidence, her past no longer a chain dragging her down, but a necklace of wisdom adorning her. Now, she pressed, we have the chance to transform not just our business, but our legacy. Let's become the leaders who inspire change, who combat societal inequities, and empower families to forge their own futures.
The rich mood of her words echoed deeply inside her. This was her defining moment. Mabel had achieved a pivotal transformation. The janitor who had been voicing her societal struggles now exuded authority and purpose. She was clearly positioning herself not just at the negotiating table, but alongside them, ushering in a vision that resonated beyond the confines of mere professional ambition. As discussions ramped up around the table, Mabel named the key components she would need to solidify the proposal: funding, networks, and community involvement. But a thought lingered in her mind, a tender concern for Sam. She was becoming an architect of change, and she finally realized she could balance her dual identities as a mother and a professional. Coming to terms with that duality felt invigorating, yet it left her with a commitment far broader than she had anticipated. Time moved on, and the board began to deliberate, removing their initial facade of skepticism. A board member named Sarah, seasoned yet introspective, raised her hand. "Mabel, I want to say that hearing your story reminded me that we can't forget our own humanity in this process. When we step into our responsibilities as leaders, we can also build a better world for ourselves and our families." Mabel's heart swelled, gratitude filling her as the board responded with encouragement. Their dialogue now echoed with warmth rather than opposition. They shared ideas and sparked potential partnerships she had once only dreamt of. By the end of the meeting, Mabel had transformed their narrative, weaving her tale of struggle, empowerment, and hope into the very fabric of their corporate mission. The proposals took hold, the initiatives resonated with purpose. A future she had fought tenaciously for was taking root. Later that evening, back in the sanctuary of her apartment, she cradled Sam in her arms, the weight of her day dissipating as her daughter nestled against her side. The chaos of the boardroom faded like a dream, replaced by the sweet serenity of home. Mabel realized she had achieved something profound. She had stepped out from the shadows into a realm of light, becoming a voice of change, one that her daughter could now look up to and admire. The next morning, as Mabel sipped coffee and watched the sunrise filter through their window, she embraced the knowledge that she had redefined what it meant to succeed.
She was no longer merely striving for recognition in a corporate sphere. She was cultivating her identity, nurturing her aspirations alongside the love she had for her daughter. The road ahead might be long and fraught with challenges, but now she stood tall, confidence radiating from her very being. Mabel had proven in that moment and the days that followed that determination could carve pathways where none existed before. And so, as she prepared for the next step, one thing became absolutely clear. She was an architect of change, both for herself and for countless others.